Look at me with my big brain move. Big brain moves. Hello, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing well because I know that I am. Why? Because today we're doing something super exciting. I am going to be recommending books to the original cast of Gossip Girl in honor of the new HBO show coming out, which I have absolutely no interest in watching. I'm going to be remembering the good old days of having lunch on the steps of the Met by recommending my favorite characters of all time, some great books. Huge spoiler alert, I'm gonna talk about whatever comes to my mind. It's been a while since I've seen Gossip Girl, so I might say things that could turn out to be huge spoilers. In interest of preserving my sanity and not going on a rant, let's get started. So the first character that I want to recommend a book to, and this is probably the easiest choice to start with, is Dan, because he's a self-proclaimed book guy. He's I'm a reader, and he's really annoying about it, and he never, I don't know. When I was watching it as someone who also was a huge kiss ass to my English teacher, watching him represent all of the English nerds was so frustrating because I was he's just entitled. He never does anything to prove that he's exceptionally connected to literature except saying, I'm really great, and then getting a story published in the New Yorker at what age, 18? No, when he's still in high school. Are you kidding me? There are authors who work their entire lives just to get a story in the New Yorker, and Dan just stumbles in and goes, I'm excellent. So I'll humor him, and if I were to give him a genuine book recommendation, I would say read The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. It's a love letter to literature, which it is. I think it's a beautiful book if you don't care that nothing is gonna happen and the plot's gonna be confusing the whole time. If you just want some gorgeous sentences and some mystical bookish vibes, then this is right up your alley. I think this is the kind of thing that he would enjoy as someone who loves literature. It's the kind of recommendation that I feel you can give to a lot of people who love books, and most of the time they'll really enjoy it. That being said, there are a good number of people who really hate this book because nothing happens. So that is something to keep in mind, but I feel Dan would really eat this up. The second book recommendation that I have for him is anything by Haruki Murakami. I feel he's actually the target audience for Murakami. He's a Japanese author and he writes literary fiction with a speculative twist. There's certain fantastical elements woven into his narratives, and his writing style is very dreamlike and ethereal. He uses the craft of writing to build narratives that are compelling even when nothing happens. And for me, as a craft thing, if you want to sit down and actually analyze a good short story, Haruki Murakami is absolutely the place to start. He's the gold standard on literary fiction with a speculative twist. Dan being as delusional as he is, he might as well put some fantasy into his little stories. So would appreciate him reading some Murakami, but I also feel he's pretentious enough to really get into it and be Murakami's my favorite author. Not that everyone that likes Murakami is pretentious, but I do think that there is a certain level of you have to be intellectually interested in his work and intellectually interested in yourself and your own growth to fully throw yourself into Murakami to the extent where he could become one of your favorites. So at least in my experience, all of the people that I've met who are Murakami is my favorite author are pretty similar and have a similar almost literary elitist vibe. But I might be wrong. That might also just be because of where I met these people, which is at university, where everyone's trying to pretend that they're smarter than they are. Next, we're gonna round out the Humphreys by going on to Jenny. I think that Jenny could use some good old-fashioned Pride and Prejudice. I think Jenny was so busy raging against the corporate machine that she never took a step back to reevaluate the situation and the absurdity of it all. And so I think reading would have been a great hobby for her instead of making questionable friends and throwing Cruella-style guerrilla fashion shows, but she did it first, to be fair. So I'm looking at you, Disney. It's called plagiarism. But yeah, I think Pride and Prejudice would be great for her. Lydia's story of getting married too early and being super impulsive, I feel that would really resonate with her. And also just seeing the kinds of shenanigans that her brother and her friends are involved in, because Pride and Prejudice has a lot of the same themes of romance and class and what it means to date in between classes, and the same kinds of big questions that she's dealing with are explored through a lot of Jane Austen's work. So I think it could have been a really formative text for her. Big brain. Then we're thinking about Jenny. We're gonna think about the people she made out with and it was super inappropriate. Are we all there? Are we all feeling the fantasy? Are we all seeing it? That's right, it's Nate. So uncomfy. Oh, so weird. Because I know that in the show, it's supposed to be close enough in age so there's not statutory rape, but watching it as a 16-year-old thinking about like an 18, 19-year-old, ooh, the power dynamic made me uncomfortable even then. So that was weird, and I can't believe it was on television. Moving swiftly onwards to Nate's book recommendation, which is going to be This Side of Paradise by F. Scott Fitzgerald, which was Fitzgerald's breakout piece of work. It's basically like a very thinly veiled autobiography about his time at Princeton and the shenanigans that he got up to and how he tried to win Zelda back and how he was writing this novel to become a famous author so that he would be good enough to marry her. And it's about like seeing this like elite social circle from the outside. Why do I think Nate should read it? I'm thinking about him sitting on a mattress in a dark, empty brownstone, and I'm thinking in that moment he's on the fringes of high society and he's been outcast. It could be the kind of text that brings him solace but also hope about like how vapid this echelon of society is, and also like getting that perspective on what these people are like from the outside, like taking a step back and reevaluating what his priorities are, because I feel like in the later seasons Nate made a lot of really bad choices just because he was so desperate to like regain his position within like elite society. And if he had like read something like this and potentially been like, ooh, that's not for me, then like Nate could have been like a redeeming character. We could have had a little more flavor. And then for the icon, Serena Woodsen, I'm going to recommend The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I think there's some really good young woman in a city is sad vibes. Obviously that like fits for all of the Gossip Girl characters because they're so dramatic. But the reason that I would want to recommend this to Serena is because in the season where they're like deciding like whether or not to go to college and like thinking about their futures, Serena deals with questions of privilege and guilt a lot, where she understands that she's been handed a lot of things and a lot of opportunities, and she's saying no to them because they don't feel authentic and right to her. And that's the main premise of The Bell Jar. It's once again a thinly veiled autobiography of Sylvia Plath's own youth, where like she won a like prestigious competition with a magazine, and for a summer her and a whole bunch of other girls got to go to fashion shoots and meet people within the literary world in New York, and she had this whole opportunity to jumpstart her career and have like this wonderful life as like a literary person in New York. And she gets there and she's dealing with her mental health and decide who she wants to be and what actually is right for her. It's such a beautiful examination of feminism in the 50s, but also what it means to be independent and what an opportunity cost actually is, and the cost of mental health. And it's also just beautifully written, and Sylvia Plath is an icon. So do I think everyone should read it? Absolutely. But most of all, I think Serena Woodsen could benefit so much by reading something like this. I'm gonna hop on over to Chuck. Ed Westwick's glow up over the like first couple of seasons is insane. Because like the first season, he's like nothing that special to look at, especially with the skinny little scarf. Like it's kind of uncomfy. But then, mama, delicious, scrummy yummy. So I would absolutely do anything for Ed Westwick, especially since, if you're a Cassandra Clare fan, listen up. He's the audiobook narrator of the second Infernal Devices book, Clockwork Prince. Go give it a listen. His voice is delicious. So, Ed Westwick aside, and moving back onto Chuck Bass, the book that I would recommend to him is Atonement by Ian McEwan. Basically, it follows these two sisters and how a lie told by a child when they were too young to understand what they were doing affects the entire course of multiple people's lives, and how their family is torn apart by this lie, and what it means to atone for a sin that you made when you didn't understand what a sin was. I think Chuck Bass is the kind of person who like repeatedly screws people over and like sometimes does it unknowingly, but like in a different kind of way, because in Atonement it's because of like innocence and not really understanding what the world is like that leads to this horrible lie that ruins lives. Whereas Chuck Bass, it's more like he has a flawed view of the world because of his upbringing. Having this moral compass that's like slightly off kilter leads him to like really ruin people's lives. And I think Atonement would be the perfect kick in the teeth for Chuck Bass. And then lastly, we've made it. Ooh, baby, we made it. My love, my icon, my forever role model, Blair Waldorf. When I watched Gossip Girl, I wanted to be Blair so badly. She's the pinnacle of bratty rich mean girl. She does it so well. You love to hate her, you want to be her. In the little corner of my brain that will forever be dedicated to Gossip Girl, I will always have like a little shrine to her because I think she brought like a really unique confidence and energy that I think was good. Was it problematic? Absolutely. But at the time, I loved that she was living her hashtag girl boss life. So what book would I recommend to a girl boss like this? I would say, first, we gotta hook her up with some Gone Girl. We gotta. Because I feel like to read about other manipulative women who are manipulative in a completely different way, and also the way that in Gone Girl, the scandal is taken to like the national level. Like Blair never got that far. She was kind of just like, you know, messing around in Manhattan and then like felt edgy when she like dipped her toes into Brooklyn to visit the Humphrey. Like that was the extent of her dominion really. At least like season 1, season 2 Blair, I think would have read this and been inspired for days. Would it have been like that productive of a like reading choice for her? No. Would it have made her a worse person? Absolutely. But would we have all been living for the tea? Exactly. And then lastly, I think Blair would have absolutely hated the Selection series. Basically, the Selection follows this like alternate America where there's a monarchy. We don't know why, but there is. And the way that the next ruling monarch's spouse is decided is by having a bachelor-like competition where they fly young ladies from each of the states into the capital and they compete on national TV to see who's going to marry the prince. And I feel like Blair, first of all, the self-insert dreams that she would have had, impeccable. And secondly, there are very strong I'm not like other girls vibes in the Selection series. And considering that's the polar opposite of Blair, I think Blair would have hated it. And like the fuel and that fire would have been so hilarious. And just like on that note, I think there is a larger discussion to be had about the ramifications of I'm not like other girls, especially in YA fiction and YA television, and the like spin-offs that that's created of the like empowered mean girl who we see personified in people like Cruella in the new film and Blair Waldorf, these girls who are like, I don't care, like I don't like, not even like I don't need no man, but like I'm going to be mean to get what I want because to be strong as a woman means to be mean and manipulative, and like that's the only way that we can gain power. If we're in touch with our femininity, in order to gain power you also have to be mean. I think that like that's also incredibly highly problematic. Going into this new adaptation, like it's the kind of thing where I just hope that they tread lightly and they actually discuss it instead of sweeping it under the rug and masquerading as like having female empowerment and hashtag girl boss energy by just making everyone mean. So we'll see. That being said, I haven't seen the new Gossip Girl, so I might be completely wrong. They might have already done all of these things, in which case please let me know down below. I'm super curious to know who your favorite Gossip Girl character was in the original cast and what you think of the new adaptation. As always, it was an absolute pleasure having you here. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. And as always, I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys next time.